That's going to be something like starting a party. Are you going to make me do the whole verification thing? No way. Seriously? Not had to do that before. All right, hold on. God, I love technology. Admit everybody. Thank you. Stop moving. There we go. Okay, there's me. All right. Yes, I know. Quit beeping at me. All right. I think this thing's going. All right, let's see. Camera will recenter it. But okay, what's the deal here? My lag is really bad over here. There we go. Boom. But yeah, it's like 1960s. They had it right a little bit. But that's a different class, different list. Then we got to talk about some crim law stuff. So we've been talking about responsibility, liability, the elements of laws themselves. Let's see. What else do we need to hit? It's pretty soon we'll start talking about things that matter. We'll start with stuff that matters most. Downloads. This is Crim Law. We've got 3 out here. Is it 4 when we start getting into? Yeah, here's where we are. Right now we're talking. The next chapter we'll get into, we'll start with life and death. Oh, that's right. It wanted me to sign back in. Stuff. I'm going to share my screen with you all so you can see it. It's making me re-enter my verification code again. 179.
You're not typing it.
Yep. Oh, thank you. God, I love this stuff. And now I can't see it anymore. You know, they say short-term memory is how many digits? Any of you know that off the top of your mind? Okay, long-term memory is not so good. Sorry, me smart ass. 7 plus or minus 2. So that's why phone digits, phone numbers are what they are. If you have the area code, it's I think 10, is it? Just right, real. Let people chunk it up. Here we go. But eventually we'll get into in the next chapters, we'll start with life and death, what it is. Because that's something that's funny because people don't understand because there is so much information on that stuff. Sometimes you get it in the stories, sometimes you get it just in, I guess in some ways experiential, because that's going to be part of life. Blackboard, we'll grab that too. All right, so all that's up, and if we need anything, I can get it from Blackboard. Okay, so we were talking about solicitation. We actually kind of got a little bit ahead of ourselves last time. We started talking about incitation. So we start dealing with her. These are verbal things. Sometimes. Okay. What are the different ways you can ask for something? Yes, no. Okay. That's methods lesson. A little early for this for some of you. Really interesting thing. So someone I know was going through a pretty serious depressive issue recently. I had some experience with depression. I didn't realize how bad it was. Things so damn negative that as you start dealing with someone who's having real issues with it, even the individual sentences move this way. If you don't know what's going on, the thing you'll think is dishonesty because you just flipped whatever I said. You don't realize. No, it's not really the inversion of it where it's completely like good, bad. It's depression. When you see it, you see someone who looks depressed, feels depressed. When I see that, but I can also see it right here in the sentence structure and word choice. All right, if you're paying attention, you can too. Positive, neutral, negative is a good way to look at anything in life. Right, it's a very condensed way to look at it. Here, we've got the presence of something. What are the other ways you ask for stuff? something's present. Here, hold on. I gotta see who tried to pop in. Give me this. I guess it's back there. Grab this over here. Let me move that thing. No, it will not. Admit. Okay, cool. Move this thing down. Yeah, there we go. Presence and absence. Presence of is verbal. What's it? If you have the absence of something, you guys are staring at me crazy person. Oh my God. I realized I kind of ran sometimes. I actually saw a video the other day that kind of scared me a little bit. It was a meme about sleepless rants. It was an old guy with a great big beard. He talked about like what I do in terms of speed. Like, oh God, that's not me. Not that old yet. Boom. Boom. Put those two words together. Say it with me out loud. What is it? Nonverbal. Yes. Okay. So sometimes it's verbal, sometimes it's not. You have to look at everything. Context matters. So it's not just the verbal and the nonverbal. You also have context. Hopefully you have this one right here. That's if you're trying to get to the truth. That's a whole hell of a lot of work. It is. People just want to know, is this right? Is it wrong? Is it good? Is it bad? Is this a crime or isn't it a crime? And it doesn't work like that. Welcome to the system. Nothing ever works like that. I love you going. It makes me happy. Because it's early in the morning. I know it's not because I'm excited. I'm feeling pretty good. Sometimes I will put you to sleep though. That right there. This is the thing you always want to get to, because if you get this, you know you've hit it. You can make a determination from there to some degree of certainty. Realize the probability here. Think about that in conjunction with everything all the time, right? In this, I need you to look at this the same way. Because this is what will happen. We're always. When do you think religious stories often come in the forms of parables? Anytime you get a story about something, if I said Aesop's fables, if I said Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, if I said Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, Romeo, Jude, whatever, Hamlet, whatever. Big stories, right? Any case can be like that in terms of length. The big ones are probably longer than they're like reading the Blue like Archipelago. That's like a 4-volume set, each in 1,000 pages. That's a better read. You can tie it up for a little while. I said, take any landmark case that you've heard of in the news and people have made their judgments on it. You can go, if it's high profile enough, and find information on it, and you can actually see how much information is out there. You'll see it's too much for any one person to make conclusions on this. Mike Brown I use because I think it's the New York Times, at least a year ago, that still hosted all of that stuff online. So you can see all of the documents in the report, all of the witnesses' statements, all of, you're talking hundreds of thousands of texts, pages of texts, that kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, ain't nobody gonna do that digging. Most are just gonna be reading up to get what they think is right. So you get these two options. So we're trying to manage interpretations and misinterpretations of what people said and how they're meant to be interpreted by others. Here, when you get to solicitation, incitation, any of that stuff that's verbal. Okay. How can I interpret the words that you say? I don't know. Right? This is something other people talk to directly at scale kind of thing. If I start talking with a large group of people like a classroom, at any one point in time, I might say something that's offensive to one person in that classroom, but everyone else will find it's okay. Right? that agreement reality thing to talk about methods, if you're in methods. That's over here. To some degree, we vote in these people, we vote on the laws to some degree, that kind of stuff. So we have to agree. We have that truthful, factual nature of what things really are. That's why even jury nullification exists. You have to look at it as a whole. If you don't think the law's right, you don't have to follow them. They're the ones who do it. Right? What are we trying to do? Are we trying to interpret it? Or are we trying to misinterpret it? Because if we have a purposeful misinterpretation, that's a negative thing. It's another step lower. That's with purpose. As you're making these arguments in court, people do that. I'm going to mess with the context of this situation so that you don't get this. The context I provide lends itself, whether it's here or both, to the interpretation I want you to take. If I give you enough information, facts, figures, that's going to seem very legitimate, that kind of a thing. And on the other side, be paying attention to add that context back in to get it rehabilitated back to where it's supposed to be, whether that's towards the prosecution side, whether that's towards the defense's side. Right? That's unethical. And who does that in that field? I shouldn't be in that field. Most of them do it. I present it this way. It was really good for me, really bad for that guy. Here it is. There's also a lie, even if you're trying to seek the truth. People don't get that though. It's a nuance. It's going to be between those things. Mind the spaces, mind the gaps. Okay. Elements here. Commanding, encouraging, demanding another person to do something. We talked about defenses to this one, so I need to. Here's what I need to talk about. Solicitation. It's out of order. So it jumps into attempts. I don't want to do attempts just yet. Let's see if it has the incitation in here. It didn't jump into that one. So I'll talk about it a little bit. Can't remember where I have that then. That's crimes against government. That's why. This is crimes. It can be against the public, crimes against the government, or crimes against persons, kind of thing. Here's where they start talking about prostitution, right? It's a different classification system. We've not talked about so much in here. Most frequently, again, it's going to come up with that method stuff, but it's a structure to talk about it. When you look at how the statutes are written and the codes that they follow, general ways we classify them: crimes against persons, crimes against property, crimes against government, crimes against the public. We also have drug crimes, but that's usually classified as crimes against the public, like public order, that kind of stuff. That's why incitation isn't in here. It's also going to be tied in the rioting, routes, and unlawful assemblies. So we'll get into that when we get into that. When you start getting to that, though, realize that this is pretty soft in terms of what you're doing. And then citation is more forceful to some degree. So keep that in mind. How soft a touch is this? How hard of a touch? When we get into assault and battery, we'll literally talk about touch. Because at that point in time, we're literally talking about touch. At what point in time is a touch acceptable? At what point in time is it strike? Oh, that one was rude. Picking on that person. Go see the principal. All right. I had a flashback there. Right? That kind of a thing. So we'll get into that. We'll move into attempts next. Start to see groundwork for what this is. You see how the law works, what lawyers do to some degree. That's the wiggle room for play. It's going to be between the statutes. It's going to be between the actual details there and the persons you're dealing with themselves. That's how they try to figure out what way this is gonna go. Yeah. Next. Asking can be a crime. The nuance between just saying something and asking something. The nuance between just thinking something and saying something. Right? Those are very hard lines to talk about. Because if you talk about them, what you're thinking becomes a little bit more real. So you also have to think about this stuff as tangible versus intangible at the same time. Some of the stuff technically tangible, but what's behind it isn't. That's what we're trying to get at. Okay. A tent. A whole bunch. Usually they start with prostitution stuff. So, attempts. Intent. So your intent. Basically, all you need here is it has to be specific. What they mean like from that is specific as opposed to
General.
there you go. Excellent. Remember, anytime you have a word like that, sometimes it will key into a continuum or a spectrum of things. That's part of those setting of structures, like I gave you a minute ago, crimes against persons, property, government, public, that kind of stuff. If you look at that, that's also semi. It's not going to line up right, but morality for people, right? Crimes against persons are going to be the worst. Then crimes against property, then crimes against government, then crimes against the public. Why? Because by the time you get to the public, you're dealing with nuisance stuff. Hey, dude's grass is too long. I don't like it. I don't like to hear that person's music anymore. Can I get someone to go make them shut it off? Right? That kind of a thing. More specific, more serious at times, but that's kind of stuff that's included with that group too. With intent, what you realize is that knowing or purposeful knowing, that kind of stuff. That's specific. Your negligence and recklessness ones are generalized because you're not thinking that clearly there, right? It can be clarity of thought. Are you planning this out or is this just something you're doing because you're dumb, right? I'm going to drive at 90 miles an hour at this, towards this campgrounds. Campgrounds, right? It's an RV park. We'll make it really weird. It's going to be campgrounds of sovereign citizens, right? I'm doing something reckless there. I'm driving out on the streets around, still fairly rural. They think I'm there to attack. They open fire. They shoot. I get shot a couple times. My buddy who's in the passenger seat dies. Right? What am I going to get them for? One's going to be murder. That's going to be attempted murder. Right? What did I do that was wrong? I wasn't attempting to do anything. I was just being dumbass. That's the difference. Specific versus generalized. Right? How much thought are you giving it? How well planned is this? Are you, do you realize the gravity of these actions to some degree? All those things are going to be arguments that are put forward to try to establish that. Different ways you can come at that same issue. The acts. Verb versus correct. Saved by the Bell. That's a reference that none of you get. That was a social one. So you think they watched the reruns. This guy there, so crappy. Like, yeah. Anyhow. That's a line that's hard to draw. We started playing with that a little bit last time. Maybe the time before. We start playing with thresholds and that kind of thing. If I open the door, is that a perpetration, preparation, that kind of thing? The door is kind of open. It's right here. We'll say this is the door to somebody's house. It's open like that. I'm gonna go take some stuff. What is that? We just stop right there. No other details. I've moved the door and I bleed in. Is that attempted burglary or is that perpetrated burglary? How much you guys think about that for sure? I'll take you off topic while you think about it. Whenever you drive in the city, how far over the speed limit do you drive?
About 5 over.
5 over. Okay. How many go 10 over? Okay. How many of you go 15 over? Why don't you go 15 over? You do go 15 over. But why don't you go 15 over regular? I mean regular. You picked up on that. Yeah. The fastest I've gone recently, well, in the last few years was 140.
Oh,
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, I did it in just a few seconds too. It's a lot of fun. I don't do that anymore. Don't do that kind of stuff. You pop like water balloons. I found that out first. Don't do that. Don't speed. But we'll talk about that for a second. So the times you're going 15 miles an hour, you don't do that very often. You don't do that very long. Why is that? Why is it you roll back down to 10 to 5 miles an hour over? Because 1 mile and over is your criminal. Why is it you roll back down?
You're more easily spotted.
If you start looking at the laws, depending on where you're at, the common one that's said, you have to look at the specific laws there. It said 15 miles an hour within most municipalities is reckless driving. You've entered into a new crime. It's no longer just speed, right? Or like the super speeders. Do not pass go directly to jail. We'll take your license when you do, right? That kind of a thing. Yeah. You weren't here. This isn't it. You're right here. That 1 mile an hour over, they've got justification to stop you for any reason they want to. Why do you think whenever you slow down to the speed limit, the officer then starts following you? The hell's going on here? You're obviously doing something, Captain Obvious. What is it? Okay, let's just find out. I want to have a quick talk here. There you go. That's the policing side of it. Legal side. I crossed this threshold. I'm a burglar. I've already committed it. All it takes is crossing the threshold. That kind of thing. You started to move into it. You're committing the act itself. The act itself, if you look at the definitions when we get into it, that's a key element of it. You've moved off into perpetration. You're in, right? If I stop you at Walmart before you walk out the door and you've got, I don't know, we'll say you broke it. You did something obvious. We'll say it's the video game case. Smash it open, grab something, stuffed it down your pants, and took off towards one of the exits by attacking you beforehand. Were you trying to burglarize them? Yes. Is it attempted or is it successful? Depends on how they want to prosecute it, what evidence they have in the state statutes there. Sometimes they'll prosecute it as successful, sometimes it's just an attempt. Why? You did everything you needed to do. Don't just stop you at some point in time. It's an attempt, it's in your possession. It's in your possession with that intent. Hey, guess what? You're a burglar. Sure. Right? You look at the thresholds across time and how these things interact. If you were a nighttime burglar in the 1960s, it's the 70s, I think 60s. Nighttime burglar is a felony. As a police officer, I'm justified in stopping a felon with deadly force no matter what. Hey, I got someone who's doing nighttime burglaries. Let's find a situation where I can shoot him in the head. Because that happened. Not purposefully, but it did. That's why you don't have deadly force for fleeing felons. You're over here. Perpetration is in that preparation stage, the planning stage. What you get is whenever you get once really any substantial step towards it. So depending on those statutes, yeah, that movement there might be it. We'll talk about this a little bit more. I think I said, well, school shootings. So we had some shooting stuff. So I don't know what types of shootings we're talking about all over the place. How can you tell the difference whenever they've moved into initiating the plan versus prepping it, right? We'll take assassin number 1, right? Take away everything from that day. Go beforehand. We'll go from the day before back. At what point in time will that have been preparation? It's gonna be hard to distinguish, right? At what point in time have you taken that one substantial step to indicate it? Is it going to be buying the firearms? Is it going to be buying ammo? What happens if you're going to go out and shoot at first to train? What's the difference? How can you tell that they're leaving out to train or they've started to initiate that plan? Because that's the distinction you need to make. Going for a range day, you have to have not a conversation with some weird sovereign citizen, right? That wasn't a sovereign citizen, it was an FBI agent. Okay, I'm actually going out to the range. I have no indication, no idea, no intent to actually go up this weird thing that they told me to do, but I took a step out of my house with this stuff because I was going to the range. Oh shit. Looks like this, doesn't it? Very, very difficult to make this thing here. That's why pre-crime is such a very difficult thing to deal with. You don't want to deal with thoughts. You don't want to deal with people's facial reactions. We have to specify that we can't make statuses illegal. Statuses like mental illness. Statuses like intoxication. Right? It's not the fact you are intoxicated. You get any status you want. Once a judge, you just can't be in possession of them. That's weird. It doesn't make any sense because the whole reason we deal with possession is to keep people out from under the influence of it. Right? This is where you get that thin line right there. Very distinct, very hard to draw. Always at the individual level. Always at specific instances. Defenses, abandonment or impossibility. I abandoned my plan. Talked about that already. You have to be able to substantiate that. You need to be able to show that if you're going to do that. Basically, you start thinking about who have you notified about this plan? What steps have you taken to avert it? That kind of stuff. Impossibility is the other one. Two types of impossibility. Factual and legal. So legal means that whatever you're doing doesn't actually have any criminal statutes attached. Nothing criminal here. Yeah, it's evil, but it's not criminal. Those are my favorite. Why? We get all of the offices of people can actually see it, but no one actually cares. So you get a different measure there. That's fun. Okay. Factual impossibility. It's impossible for you to actually go through with this thing, right? I think of a good example. You're going to rob a bank. Whenever you rented out the apartment above, you didn't realize the bank's no longer there, and that apartment is includes the bank below. You just been a dumbass, right? It's not possible for you to actually do this. There are other examples that are better than that. I'll probably have them in the outline kind of thing. But that's what it is. It's impossible for this crime to actually take place. The legal is it's not a crime. And so impossibility is an option. Okay, next up, we'll give you the Oklahoma statute. Okay, attempts to commit a crime, punishments. Every person who attempts to commit any crime and such attempt does not act, let's move this that way, toward the commission, but fails, is prevented, intercepted, and the perpetration thereof is punishable, for no provision made for the punishment of such attempt as follows. This is a clause in here. We'll stop and deal with that for a quick second, because that might be one you don't quite get why that's there. Weird statement. Why is that there? This stuff's weird. It's self-referencing to itself, and it might not always give you a reference for what it's self-referencing to. There are other statutes related to attempts. They'll be more specific. Think attempted murder, right? You're not going to deal with those under the generalized attempt laws, right? Because you're going to have specific ones for the serious crimes, the ones that need a separate statute for attempts themselves. This one's more of a generalized one. This one's just speaking to punishments, but if you go to this and you keep reading, it'll give you more and more details as you go. Right? And it'll start to break out those crimes. And if you read it like it's a textbook, what you'll see is the differentiation of the different types of actions and intents and their crimes thereof. So you can read it like a textbook if you want, but it reads like staring direction. here. Okay. Here it talks about the attempt is punishable in prison for 4 years or more. Da 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 da. So it gives you the math. 1/2 for an attempt. Right? If it's less time than that, not more than 1 year. If it's by a fine, 1/2 of the largest fine is what the top limit is there. So it puts thresholds on everything. You should be doing the same things you're thinking about this stuff. Why I present things the way that I do. Thresholds. Right? You can classify it as one thing if you dichotomize it. Is it actually a dichotomy or is there a whole range of things in there? Big difference. Very beginning, we could be looking at this. Let's put a box around it, see what it is. Okay. Offense is punishable. We already talked about that. Conspiracy. Here's where we're getting some fun stuff. You guys are probably getting a bit conspiratorial when you start looking at assassination attempts over time. That's one it's I've not read on it, but I've heard the phrase, the standalone complex. And I've watched animes. Oh my goodness. I'm going to say something here that we'll talk about conspiracies a little bit from a different perspective outside of textbooks. Okay. Most conspiracies, there's a really good movie with Mel Gibson from like the 90s called Conspiracy Theory. Right. Basically what it is about a crazy guy who's putting out crazy ideas, one of them's real, and they start coming for his life kind of thing. So it's one of those things that conspiracies are real, most are not. On the other end of the spectrum is paranoia, right? At the same time, it's not paranoia if they really are out to get you. That's the dichotomy with this one, right? How can you tell if someone's really out to get you or someone's really out to do something criminal? That's what we're trying to determine here. This is the structure for that we use. Okay. Standalone complex is something different. It's not a conspiracy. A conspiracy would be an agreement between people. A standalone complex is when so many people hold the same ideas, whether good or bad. You see the same behaviors pop up across different places. Think something akin to that of like terrorist sleeper cells, but there's no correlation, no coordination, no direct ties. It's just they hold a similar idea or belief. Because they act on those similar ideas and beliefs. It has the appearances of being a conspiracy, but is not. So that's a whole lot of words related to something that's kind of off topic, but not really. So I kind of make a differentiation between what conspiracies are, what they're not, and if you encounter something that's kind of neutral and you don't really know, is that positive, neutral, negative thing again, so that we can see that. It's a lot of information. Okay. Some jurisdictions use degrees. If you get in the statute and has degrees, we'll talk about it. If not, I'll skip over that. It's the clock over there. 9:34. Okay. So, elements of conspiracy. An act which may be, that's got a typo, an agreement. All right. Problem with multiple agreements, and it requires an act with those agreements, just like anything else with attempts. Like conspiracies have that same threshold. You need something to make it real. Right? It's not just that we agree on something. Right? Now, it's how much does each person individually know about how everything fits together. Right? You have to have that intent at some place. And so if I know that we'll say, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. Okay, we won't do that. I'm going to have person A go hire person B. Person B is going to be hired for a job. It's going to be identifying and hiring people for my trucking business, right? At the same time, I'm going to hire someone over here who's going to be dealing with my shipping business of what I'm shipping and distributing. So it's not going to be legal, right? Don't say. C equals D, drugs. I'm going to try to get those over here. Who am I agreeing with at what levels? Who knows what? That kind of thing. And so who's actually a party to the conspiracy involved, right? How many different agreements can take place here? You're gonna have one person who's master and commander that looks to be the C person, or is it gonna be split across multiple people? Or is it gonna be something where there is a master person, but you're not gonna know about it because they're being hidden, and so they're hiding, person 1, 2, 3, or how many different places they need to go to get the people they need to get, whatever industries they need to touch. It's complex. Okay. Intent there. We'll talk about that for a second. We'll jump to action. That agreement there. It's that agreement to accomplish something that is unlawful. Not that they agree, that kind of thing. Right? I agree, that would be good. Well, it's unlawful. I don't want anything to do with it. I just agree that it'd be good. Right? So. An act plus agreement. Let's we get right back into that question of who does what at what point in time. If you do this right, you can spring a trap on somebody. If you do it wrong, you can still spring a trap on somebody. Right? So that's going to be an element of it. The close time gauge. It's not even this bar over here over so I can see the time on this screen. Otherwise, I have to focus on the other one to see it. It's a little too small. Actions, something substantive, something that furthers the plan. It's got to fit into the plan, and you have to be able to identify that. Right? Whose act? No, I will do it like this. What's it? Uncolorable. That's a symbol for that. Whose act can trigger this to where I can do something about it? Any others? As long as it furthers that plan. This person, this person, this person, this person, this person, any of these. Welcome, you're not held criminally responsible for the actions of another because you agree with them. Depending on how much you agree with them and what you're willing to do for it. We're social animals. That's a hard thing to keep up with, right? There's so many different places, good things that overlap, how many different parties agree. How do we treat different people who are bound in different ways? That kind of a thing. Let's bring it over here. Let's think about the word knowledge to get that one. The husband and wife we talked about already to some degree. They're a unit. What that comes to is like if you're dealing with confessions, that kind of thing. That right to testify about the actions of another is held by whoever is choosing to talk. That kind of a thing. Here, what it is they're one person. They can't have a conspiracy between themselves. They are one unit. Legally, if you look at it, the contractual paperwork that you filed for marriage identifies that. You're bound, you're one. I just want to talk about that from a social perspective, but I'm not going to. I'm going to jump to corporation because I don't remember that one either. I'm in trouble with both of those. It'll be in the media outline. I'll pull that up in a second. Corporation rule. Same thing as a marriage. You've heard that phrase, you're married to your job. Sometimes you are. It means within the corporation itself, you can't have an agreement that works like that. It has to be something you have to be able to clear. You can't be like this. let's say you do have two bad actors who have a conspiracy within a corporation. That does not necessarily mean it is the corporation itself. That kind of a thing. It's its own entity. You don't get to hold it out like that kind of thing is what they're trying to get at. What it is that corporation itself is its own entity. It's its own living thing. It's an organization. You can have an agreement between different corporations, that kind of thing. Then you start getting into something else. I don't remember exactly how it works in organizations themselves. I have to get into that one a little quicker though. I need to. Okay, defenses. Withdrawal or abandonment. Again, affirmative acts, so things you can substantiate. It has to be something to substantiate. Inconsistence with the objectives of the conspiracy communicated in manner. All right. A few stories that pop up in my mind, but I'm not going to go into those just yet because I want to look up something first. Okay, so that's going to be evidence. All terms. That's the future. Crim Law. Here we go. Part 3. Outline, because I don't remember. Anticipatory crimes and co-ed crimes. Okay. Crimes not sufficient to produce a criminal event. Here we go. Down here. Complicity. We do need to talk about accomplices and stuff, but I think that's next. First, we're coming down here to Pinkerton rule. Co-conspirators may be held accountable for fellow conspirators, even though the requirements of liability for the acts of the accomplices themselves are not met. That's that Pinkerton rule. That's why anytime you start dealing with RICO, they start talking about patterns to some degree, but they talk about once they get that pattern established, they're able to get everyone who's involved. They're able to also get money from the organization. That's the real power for RICO, is it goes after resources, not that it necessarily just goes after people. It's that it's fighting ways out. Been met, that kind of thing. So that's how that one works. The Wharton rule. Get the principles here in a second. Yeah, that's where we talk about RICO. Wharton rule. Two people engaging in a crime, that's what it is. It takes, if the crime itself requires two people, you need an additional person for there to be a conspiracy. So solicitation for prostitution is not a conspiracy if it's just John and I don't actually know if we give a name to, I guess I'll just use the word Jane. I don't know. It's funny. Let me think about that for a second. So you got those two people there, a crime that requires two people. That's not a conspiracy, even though they made an agreement. Why is that? Because that agreement ties so closely to the crime itself, you can't separate it out. Be a conspiracy, get the pimp involved. Then you got your conspiracy, right? But talk to the pimp first. Made an agreement. Now you got a conspiracy to commit crime, right? Well, let's see about where we can put these people at so we can make more money. Now, there, that's the real conspiracy. Okay. Some jurisdictions reject this rule. It's the better way to run it, though. All right, let's see where this thing picks up again because I don't remember. Let's move this back down. Boom. Here. Okay. So almost conspiracy. Two or more persons conspire either to commit a crime, falsely maliciously indict another, so using the system. Falsely move, maintain any suit, so using the civil system. Cheat, defraud anyone, so basically taking resources. Committing act injurious to public health, morals, so there's your more aggregate level there. It has an effect on the public good kind of thing. You can see the degrees to which it affects their seriousness and directness kind of thing, both tied into one. Because you get more closely to it directly, the more serious it is. As we get to parties to crime. Back in no, I'm just kidding. This right here, parties to crime, is important to be aware of because we have distinctions for those directly involved as well as those surrounding the facts, right? Who's directly involved and who isn't, in what ways are you involved? Principal, you're the one doing it, of course, right? First degree, you're the one directly doing it. Second degree, you're present or actually or constructively, we need to talk about that. You're causing it. right? So there's some wiggle room there. If you look at the next one down, because that's dealing with, you're just inciting or betting it, not there constructively or actually. So these overlap right here between accessory and a principal. So let's get into that. What is it to be present? We talked about Descartes. Let that go. No, can't see that again. Actually, they're constructively. Actually, it's like physically for the most part. We're dealing with there. Constructively, that's the one we really need to talk about because people don't always understand that. Hmm. This is mine. Is it mine? It's in my possession right now. Is it mine? How many of you say yes? How many of you say no? I didn't see really any hands, and I didn't get depends as an option. We got to pick one. Which one is it? Is it mine or is it not? Raise your hand if you think it's mine. Okay, I got one person. Raise your hand if you think it's not. Got 1, 2, 3. Are you guys raising your hand just because you think it's a trick question? Is that what it is? You wait till the second option just to raise your hands all at once? What's going on here? Okay. Yeah, it does kind of depend to some degree, but we know I'm not a thief, so I'm not going to take it with me. In fact, I've been leaving it here every time I use it. I'm the one who brought it down here. I'm the one who brought it down here. Is it mine? Ooh, that's an argument. Where did I get it from? The supply closet upstairs. It's not mine. I brought it down here. I moved it down here. I leave it here because it's not mine. I'll touch it from time to time. This has been the universities. It will always be the universities until it ends up in the trashes. Possession. That's how it works. That's constructive possession. You'll see it in the legal side. If you take the procedures, I'll give you a demonstration of it. If you haven't, you'll get it there. Basically, the easiest way to identify it is seizures. When are you seized? Right? If I'm going to tackle you, you know you're seized. You got that's actual, right? Physical, real, tangible. Constructive is a little bit more abstract. It's one way to look at it. So if I say, hey, stop right there for a second. Can you stop? Say, hey, stop right there for a second. You just stop. Yes, that itself is a seizure. Right? Do you feel like you're free to leave? If not, and you submitted there, you are constructively seized. You take off running because you got drugs on you. You're not seized. Right? Obviously, you're running. You'll get seized, maybe. But that's a different story. Okay. The time ordering, and that's where we'll stop for today. Before and after the fact. You need to be aware of what's going on to be an accessory. Just being in the circumstances present isn't enough. You have to be involved in it. Here, knowing you have to be involved in it. You have to know that this is happening and I'm helping you in some way. If I give a poor person shelter because I see them in the wood lost and alone, am I an accessory after the fact because they broke out of prison? Not if I don't recognize that they broke out of prison, right? I'm just helping somebody. I mean, if I know, hey, that was their prison uniform. I got some, what's up here, right? Or, hey, you got a prison uniform. How can I help? That's a different thing. Exactly. So with that, I will let you guys go for today. We'll pick up with this next time. We should finish this one out. We'll get to start moving on to life and death. Cool. All right. We'll pick up there next. Have a great day. All right. And for all.